Spartans, prepare your breakfast. For tonight we dine in hell. One line was enough to turn a battle into myth. 300 soldiers, a narrow pass, an empire without end. The film 300 showed us the image, the fearless warrior, the defiant king. But it left something out. Leonidas wasn't born a hero, he was built, broken down, reshaped, forged by a system that didn't create men, only weapons. Before the myth, before the sacrifice. How do you turn a child into a weapon? And how much humanity must be destroyed to do it? To understand Leonidas, you have to understand the place that created him. Sparta was not Athens. There were no philosophers debating truth, no artists shaping beauty, no theaters celebrating freedom. Sparta was a pressure chamber, a city built on constant fear. Not fear of foreign armies, not fear of invasion. Sparta was terrified of the people it ruled. A tiny elite of full citizens sat on top of an enormous enslaved population, outnumbered 10 to 1, sometimes more, if that fear ever slipped, if control weakened for even a moment. Sparta wouldn't fall to an enemy. It would be torn apart from the inside, so the city didn't survive on laws. Laws were too slow, too soft. Sparta survived on terror. Every year the state declared ritual war on its own slaves. Young Spartan men were unleashed into the countryside at night, armed, anonymous, encouraged to hunt the strongest, the loudest, the most defiant, not as punishment, as training. This wasn't just population control, it was rehearsal, teaching boys how to stalk, how to kill silently, how to feel nothing while doing it. Violence wasn't a last resort, it was the foundation. Sparta didn't raise warriors to fight outsiders. It raised predators to keep its own world from collapsing. A society locked in permanent internal war. Disciplined, paranoid, brutally efficient. And this is where Leonidas entered the world. Not into glory, not into honor, but into a city that could only exist by constantly manufacturing fear. Leonidas was born royal. House of the Agoges, one of Sparta's 2 ruling bloodlines. A name heavy with history, tradition, and expectation. But in Sparta, royal blood did not mean safety. It meant scrutiny. Kings were not protected, they were tested. Leonidas was not the firstborn, he was not the chosen heir. And in Sparta, that single fact changed everything. Because Sparta did not waste resources on spare kings. At 7 years old, Leonidas was taken from his family, not in secret, not with hesitation. This was not a punishment, it was policy. His childhood ended that day, not slowly, instantly. He was not sent away to be taught, he was sent away to be erased. No family name, no lineage, no identity beyond obedience. Royal blood offered no exceptions, no mercy. If anything, it demanded more. Sparta believed weakness was hereditary, and every child was a potential flaw. Leonidas was stripped of comfort before he could remember it, stripped of protection before he understood it, stripped of choice before he could resist it. Other Greek cities raised princes. Sparta dismantled them. From that moment on, Leonidas was no longer a son, no longer a prince. He was raw material. And what came next was designed to break whatever remained. The Agoge was never meant to educate. It was meant to erase. For 13 years, Sparta ran the same experiment on every boy it deemed worthy of survival. Not to make them smarter, not to make them stronger, but to find out how much of a human could be destroyed before something useful remained. No shoes, no beds. They slept on the ground on reeds torn from freezing rivers with bare hands. Winter didn't matter, summer didn't matter, pain was constant. Hunger was not a side effect, it was a tool. The boys were deliberately underfed, kept on the edge of starvation, not because Sparta lacked food, but because hunger teaches lessons fear cannot. They were encouraged to steal to survive, but here came the trap. Stealing was not punished, being caught was. If you were caught, you were beaten savagely, not for the theft, but for the failure. The lesson was precise and unforgiving. Morality is irrelevant, only results matter. Pain was never considered punishment. Pain was instruction. Older boys were placed in charge of younger ones, creating a hierarchy of abuse that fed itself. Violence became routine. Cruelty became currency. If you could endure it, you advanced. If you couldn't, you broke. Most boys did. Some became hollow. Others became obedient. Many simply disappeared into the background of the system, surviving without identity. The Agoge did not teach courage, it taught efficiency. It trained boys to move without hesitation, to obey without emotion, to suffer without reaction, to speak little, to endure everything. This was not preparation for war. This was preparation for obedience under any condition imaginable. And somewhere inside this machine, Leonidas was being processed like everyone else. Royal blood offered no protection here. Only survival mattered. The Agoge was not a school. It was a filter, and only what Sparta needed was allowed to come out the other side. By the time most boys understood what the Agoge really was, it was already too late for them. They reacted with anger, fear, or defiance. Leonidas did something else. He adjusted. While others wasted strength fighting punishments they couldn't avoid, Leonidas began to observe the structure behind them. He watched which boys were beaten and which were ignored, who spoke too much, who stayed silent, who rushed, who waited. Patterns emerged quickly, and once they did, the Agoge stopped feeling random. When food was scarce, Leonidas didn't steal impulsively like the others. He didn't rush into chaos. He waited for moments when attention drifted, when guards grew tired, when noise covered movement. He didn't steal more food than anyone else. He simply stole at the right time. And when others were punished for being caught, Leonidas learned something more valuable than food. Pain was public and failure was educational. So he stopped failing in public. During training fights, he didn't charge forward blinded by aggression. He let others burn their energy first. He conserved his own. When balance shifted, he stepped in and ended the exchange quickly. Not to dominate, not to humiliate, just to finish it. Strength, he learned, wasn't about force, it was about timing. When punishment came, Leonidas didn't resist it. Resistance only extended suffering. Silence shortened it. He stood still, eyes forward, body relaxed, absorbing pain without reaction. The overseers noticed, not because he was defiant, but because he was efficient. While other boys sought attention through cruelty, Leonidas avoided attention entirely. He became predictable, reliable, the one who didn't panic when things went wrong, the one who didn't collapse under pressure. Over time, that consistency began to matter. When younger boys were paired with older ones, Leonidas didn't assert dominance through brutality. He corrected them quickly and quietly, without spectacle. Authority followed naturally, not given, earned. Soon, boys began positioning themselves near him, not for protection, but for clarity. When Leonidas moved, others adjusted. When he stopped, they waited. No orders were needed. The Agoge wasn't turning Leonidas into a weapon. It was revealing what kind of weapon he already was. Leonidas didn't survive because he was tougher than the others. He survived because he understood the environment faster than anyone else. And once you understand a system designed to break you, fear loses its power. You stop enduring it. You start using it. Leonidas was no longer just surviving the Agoge, he was quietly shaping himself within it. And that difference, subtle, invisible, and dangerous, is what separated him from everyone else who entered. While Leonidas endures the brutal Agoge, a power struggle unfolds in the royal halls. King Anaxandridas has 3 sons competing for the throne. Cleomenes, the eldest, raised in luxury, exempt from the Agoge's horrors. a prince among wolves. Dorius, the warrior forged by the Agoge, seething with resentment toward his soft older brother who would inherit everything despite earning nothing. Leonidas, the forgotten third son, invisible in his brother's shadows. Around 520 BC, their father dies. Cleomenes takes the throne. Dorius cannot stomach it. Rather than serve a brother he deems unworthy, he chooses exile, gathering loyal warriors and sailing away to establish his own colony. First Libya, then Sicily. He seeks to build his own legacy to prove his superiority. Cleomenes proves disastrous as king. Erratic, impulsive, he starts unauthorized wars and allegedly bribes the Oracle of Delphi. His instability grows. Brilliant strategist one day, paranoid madman the next. Then word reaches Sparta. Dorius is dead, ambushed by Carthaginians in Sicily. Herodotus notes the bitter irony. Had he simply waited, the throne would have been his. Pride destroyed him. Cleomenes' sanity collapses completely. The ephors declare him insane, arrest him, chain him in stocks. The next morning, he's found dead in his cell. The official account claims brutal self-mutilation with a knife. But many suspect the state quietly eliminated their embarrassing, dangerous king. The pampered brother, gone. The warrior brother, gone. Around 490 BC, Leonidas, the third son, the afterthought, the one forged entirely by the Agoge, becomes king. He didn't inherit the throne. He outlasted everyone else. Sparta now had a leader who truly understood what it meant to be Spartan. But to the east, the Persian Empire was mobilizing. The real test was coming. Leonidas claims his throne, a survivor shaped by brutality. But his reign begins under an ominous shadow. Across the world in Susa, another ruler sits in a palace larger than all of Sparta. He doesn't govern thousands, he commands an estimated 70 million subjects. His title, Shahanshah, King of Kings. His name, Xerxes. Xerxes grew up draped in silk while Leonidas starved in barracks. Now he sets his sights on Greece. In 490 BC, Xerxes' father Darius had already attacked, landing forces at Marathon. The Athenians delivered a stunning defeat, a humiliating blow to Persian prestige. When Xerxes inherits power, Marathon becomes his obsession. This isn't strategy, it's vengeance. For nearly 10 years, Xerxes assembles history's largest military force. Leonidas rules differently than his unstable brother Cleomenes, with discipline, stability, and lethal precision. Spartan women held unique status, educated and influential. Leonidas' wife Gorgo embodied this perfectly, often sharper than the men around her. A spy sends Sparta a blank wooden tablet from Persia. The council is baffled. Gorgo understands immediately. Remove the wax coating. Beneath it, carved into the wood, Xerxes is mobilizing. Leonidas has the strength. Gorgo provides the cunning. Together they prepare. Xerxes' army is incomprehensible in scale. Herodotus claimed 5 million. Modern estimates suggest 200,000 to 300,000. The precise count is irrelevant. There were too many to comprehend. When they stopped to drink, rivers ran dry. To bridge the Hellespont, Xerxes constructs a kilometer-long floating passage. When storms destroy it, he orders the sea whipped 300 times and the engineers executed. This man doesn't see himself as merely mortal. He believes he's divine. Xerxes dispatches envoys throughout Greece with a simple demand: earth and water, symbols of complete subjugation. Greece fractures, Thessaly yields, Boeotia capitulates, Argos surrenders. Terror spreads before a single arrow flies. The Persian ambassadors reach Sparta. They present their demand to Leonidas and the ephors: earth and water. Leonidas, master of laconic brevity, who knows weakness invites death, doesn't deliberate. The Spartans seize the messengers, drag them to a deep well, and deliver their response. Want earth and water? Go find them below. They hurl the ambassadors into the darkness. They've murdered diplomatic envoys of the God King. There's no diplomacy now, no retreat. Only annihilation approaches. That splash echoing from the well isn't an ending. It's the beginning of war. Sparta's execution of Persian envoys has condemned all of Greece. Xerxes won't send a punitive force, he'll bring total destruction. Panic spreads. The fractious Greek city-states suddenly face extinction together. An urgent meeting convenes. All eyes turn to Sparta. Greece has philosophers and merchants, but Sparta has warriors. The question, you started this, how do we survive? Themistocles of Athens proposes a two-pronged defense. The Athenian navy will engage the Persian fleet at sea. But warships can't stop 200,000 infantry marching overland. They need a choke point, somewhere narrow enough to neutralize Xerxes' numerical advantage. Somewhere a massive army becomes a manageable trickle. The hot gates, a narrow coastal pass, mountains on one side, sheer cliffs to the sea on the other. It's Greece's only hope, the strategy. Sparta's phalanx holds Thermopylae, buying time for the Greek navy to secure victory at sea. The plan is sound. Leonidas requests permission to deploy Sparta's army. The ephors refuse. It's the month of Carnea, Sparta's holiest festival. Sacred law forbids military campaigns during this period. To march would offend the gods. The Persian horde won't pause for Spartan traditions. They're approaching rapidly. But the ephors won't budge. Religious law is absolute. Greece will fall because of a festival. Leonidas faces a worse enemy than Persia. Bureaucratic paralysis disguised as piety. But the Agoge taught him to exploit weaknesses, to find angles others miss. He discovers one. The law prohibits the army from marching, but it says nothing about the king's personal bodyguard. The Hippes, 300 elite warriors, the best of the best. Leonidas returns to the ephors with a revision. Not a military campaign, merely his personal guard on a reconnaissance patrol. Bound by their own logic, the ephors cannot object. Leonidas has his 300. Then he issues a chilling requirement. Only warriors with living sons may volunteer. Why this coldly specific criterion? Because Leonidas understands the truth. This isn't reconnaissance. This isn't even about holding the pass indefinitely. 300 men cannot stop 200,000. This is sacrificial. He's ensuring their bloodlines survive what's coming. He's selecting men Sparta can afford to lose. This isn't a military operation. It's orchestrated martyrdom. 300 warriors. 300 secured bloodlines, 300 men condemned not by Persia, but by their own king and sacred duty. Spartan farewells contain no weakness, no tears, no prayers for safe return. Spartan women hand their men bronze shields with an iron command. With it or on it. Return victorious or dead upon your shield. Anything else, fleeing, abandoning your shield, brings eternal shame. Gorgo asks Leonidas not why he must go, but what she should do after. His response embodies everything the Agoge created: brutal, practical, devastating. Marry well, raise strong children. The 300 depart, 600 boots striking earth in rhythm. They leave Sparta behind. But before confronting the god king, Leonidas must face the gods themselves. Before battle, Leonidas visits Greece's holiest site, Delphi, home of Apollo's oracle. He seeks guidance, a strategy, some thread of hope. The priestess delivers one of antiquity's most chilling prophecies. Either Sparta falls to Persian descendants, or Lacedaemon mourns a fallen king. The meaning is razor sharp. Saving Sparta demands a king's blood. For most men, this would be terror. For Leonidas, shaped by the Agoge's brutality, it's clarity. No longer a desperate gamble, it's ordained. The gods demand it. He's not merely a commander, he's the offering. As Leonidas advances, Greece's combined forces should rally to him. Phocians, Thebans, Thespians, a united front. But terror moves faster than valor. Fear of Xerxes paralyzes the city-states. They send token contingents, not armies. At the rendezvous point, instead of the anticipated 20,000, Leonidas assembles roughly 7,000, including 400 Thebans already suspected of collaborating with Persia. 7,000 against 250,000. Does Leonidas waver? He already knows how this ends. He's not seeking victory. He's choosing where to make his stand. They reach the hot gates. The terrain is ideal. At its tightest point, the pass narrows to barely 15 meters. Here, Xerxes' numerical superiority becomes irrelevant. His cavalry cannot maneuver. His masses cannot deploy. Here, the phalanx can form an impenetrable barrier of bronze and flesh. Leonidas orders fortifications strengthened. This becomes the line, Greece's final bulwark. They wait. Tension mounts. Scouts return ashen, eyes wild with horror. They haven't witnessed an army, they've witnessed a migrating population. A human flood so immense their dust obscures the sun. So numerous that Persian arrows, they claim, will black out the sky. The Persian vanguard appears, Xerxes himself in his chariot. He approaches the modest stone fortification and sees 7,000 defenders. At the forefront, 300 Spartans in crimson cloaks and horsehair crests, leisurely grooming their long hair. They aren't fleeing. Enraged by their audacity, Xerxes dispatches one final messenger, the ultimatum: surrender your arms. All of history compresses into this moment, into this reply. Leonidas, the Agoge's masterpiece, laconic speech incarnate, a man who's already embraced his fate, smiles. Two words that echo through eternity. Mullen Labe. Come and take them. Not a response, a challenge, a declaration. The Spartan king has just insulted the self-proclaimed god king. Xerxes' rage shatters his composure. No more negotiations, no more patience. Dawn of the 5th day, Xerxes orders the attack. He doesn't commit his elite forces, why waste them? He sends 10,000 Medes, conquered peoples fighting from compulsion, not conviction. Expendable troops meant to overwhelm through sheer mass. They hurl themselves forward. They shatter against the phalanx. The Agoge designed them for precisely this. Not as warriors, but as a unified weapon. Spartans in the front rank lock shields seamlessly. The second rank extends their 3-meter dory spears over the first rank's shoulders. The third rank does likewise. A bristling wall of death, 3 layers deep. Persians cannot approach. Their wicker shields disintegrate. Their fabric armor provides no protection. They die meters away, impaled. Leonidas fights at the front, the warrior king. He roars the command, "Otismos, push!" The entire phalanx surges forward as one entity. They don't just hold, they advance. Shields driving forward, backed by the massive ranks behind. A human battering ram of muscle and bronze. Persians at the front cannot retreat. Those behind cannot see the carnage. They keep pressing forward. The front line is crushed by their own army, forced onto waiting spears or over the cliffs into the sea. Xerxes seethes with humiliation, stopped by a few hundred fanatics, no more expendables. He unleashes his ultimate weapon, his personal bodyguard, 10,000 strong, the Immortals. Named because their ranks never diminish. When one falls, another instantly replaces him. They've conquered empires, they're Xerxes' hammer. They enter the fray, the fighting intensifies, the Greek line strains, the Immortals excel in personal combat. But the phalanx doesn't depend on individual prowess. It depends on the warrior beside you. The Agoge's collective discipline surpasses individual skill. When a Spartan falls, another steps into position. The bronze wall endures. Hours of combat exhaust the front line. They need rotation. But how do you rotate mid-battle without collapse? Leonidas bellows an order. The impossible occurs. The Spartans flee, they're running, retreating. It's calculated deception, the most disciplined feint in warfare. Persians sense victory. They surge in pursuit. Then the Spartans pivot. The charging Persians crash into a suddenly reformed wall of spears. Slaughter. Discipline defeats chaos. Day 1 ends. The narrow gorge chokes on thousands of Persian corpses piled meters high. The sea runs crimson. 2 days pass. History's largest army remains paralyzed, halted by a few thousand men led by a king forged in hell. Xerxes is desperate. The humiliation is absolute. His invasion stalls. There's no frontal breakthrough. The phalanx is unbreakable from the front. Xerxes cannot break them militarily, but betrayal can. A local shepherd named Ephialtes approaches the Persian king with valuable information. A hidden goat path winding through the mountains, emerging behind the Greek position. Ephialtes, a name destined for eternal shame. He reveals the route. Xerxes acts immediately, dispatching General Hydarnes with elite forces on a nighttime mountain march through dense oak forests. Leonidas had stationed Phocian guards on the mountain path, but after 2 quiet days, their vigilance has dulled. They're positioned in remote, fog-shrouded heights, expecting nothing. Suddenly, footsteps, thousands of them. The Phocians initially mistake them for Greek reinforcements. Then arrows erupt from the mist, the immortals. The Phocians aren't Spartans. They haven't been conditioned to stand and die. They panic, scattering uphill to save themselves. They abandon the pass without a fight. The route lies open, the trap springs shut. A scout arrives, then a Persian defector. Both carry identical news. The enemy is behind us, the path has fallen, we're encircled. This is the end. Xerxes' main force at the front, immortals closing from behind. They're in a kill box. The allied commanders rush to Leonidas, demanding immediate withdrawal. The oracle's words, "Sparta will mourn a king's death." Leonidas isn't shocked. He anticipated this. Fate has come to collect. He issues his final command, "Withdraw." He orders the Greek allied forces to evacuate. Save yourselves. Return to your cities, warn Athens, prepare for future battles. Their purpose isn't meaningless death here. It's survival to fight tomorrow. Most depart. 2 groups remain. 700 warriors from Thespiae refuse evacuation. Their city lies directly in Xerxes' invasion route. They understand that failure here means their homes burn first. They choose to die alongside the Spartans. The Theban contingent, 400 strong. Leonidas distrusts them. Rumors suggest Thebes has already capitulated to Persia. He suspects their intelligence assets. In one final act of ruthless calculation, he forces them to remain not as comrades, but as prisoners, preventing them from defecting to Xerxes, the Agoge's monster, strategic and merciless to the end. The encirclement tightens. Barely 1,000 defenders remain. 300 Spartans, 700 Thespians, 400 Theban hostages. Against the world. Leonidas removes his helmet. He inhales the morning air. He surveys the 300 who followed him into this abyss. He knows the oracle will be satisfied. His death purchases Sparta's survival. No more defensive strategy, no more fortified positions, no more plans, only death waits. Leonidas releases his warriors. He roars the command that immortalizes him. "Spartans, prepare your breakfast, for tonight we dine in hell." They abandon defense. Leonidas and his remaining warriors don't wait for death. They sprint toward it. They leave the fortified position and charge directly into the Persian vanguard surrounding them. It's carnage. The Persians are stunned. Who attacks an encircling army? The Greeks penetrate enemy lines, killing hundreds. Spears shatter. They draw their xiphos, short swords. Leonidas leads from the front, not a king anymore, a butcher. He knows death is inevitable, but he'll take as many as possible. He hunts Persian generals seeking Xerxes himself. The Persians, terrified by this inhuman fury, retreat. They refuse close combat. They resort to ranged weapons. The king falls, but the fight continues. Now for Leonidas's corpse. Persians surge forward to claim the fallen king's body. The surviving Spartans form a shield wall over their leader. 4 times the Persians charge to seize the corpse. 4 times the Spartans repel them. 2 of Xerxes' own brothers die in these attempts. The last defenders, wounded and broken, drag Leonidas' body to a small rise. Their spears are gone, swords shattered. They fight with bare hands and teeth. Xerxes can endure no more casualties. He issues the final command. The sky darkens with arrows. The sun returns. The sky clears. In the pass, deafening silence. No battle cries, no clashing steel, only wind. Xerxes has won. The passage is open. The cost reports suggest 20,000 of his finest troops, including 2 brothers, all to kill 300 Spartans and 700 Thespians. The Thebans are branded like livestock, tattooed with the King of Kings mark. The slaves brand Leonidas knew they deserved. Xerxes searches for one thing: his enemy's corpse. He finds the hill, finds the Spartan king's body lying atop a mound of fallen immortals. Here, Xerxes makes his fatal error, revealing he never understood his opponent. For Greeks, respecting a fallen enemy's body was sacred law, ordained by gods. Xerxes, in impotent rage, orders Leonidas decapitated, his head mounted on a spike, his body crucified, the ultimate desecration. But he hasn't erased him, he's made him immortal. News of the massacre spreads rapidly. Runners Leonidas dispatched race southward. The story they tell isn't defeat, it's sacrifice. They recount the oracle's prophecy, the king who knowingly marched to death, 300 men who halted history's largest army for 3 days. It wasn't futile. This glorious collective suicide wasn't merely strategy. Leonidas purchased what Xerxes' wealth couldn't buy: time. Time for Themistocles to position his fleet, time to evacuate Athens. Most importantly, time for Greek fear to transform into rage. The Thermopylae story strikes the Greek city-states like lightning. Shame, guilt, while they hesitated, while they honored festivals, while they debated, 300 Spartans and 700 Thespians died for them. Hesitation evaporates. Terror becomes vengeance. Weeks later at Salamis, the inspired Greek fleet destroys Xerxes' navy. An impossible naval victory severing the god-king's supply lines. Xerxes, panicked, flees to Asia, abandoning his land army. A year later at Plataea, Sparta finally marches at full strength. They're not defending. They're avenging their fallen king. They lead the charge that annihilates the remaining Persian forces, ending the invasion permanently. The prophecy was satisfied. Sparta survived. The price: one king. Leonidas wasn't a philosopher, not a builder, not a good man by modern standards. He was something else, the perfect creation of a brutal, imperfect system. A monster engineered for one purpose: to be the shield. The Agoge stripped away his fear, compassion, and individuality. In Greece's darkest hour, those were precisely the virtues needed. Xerxes thought desecrating the body meant victory, but Spartans say, "Return with your shield or on it." Leonidas didn't return with his shield. He didn't return on it either. His body was destroyed, but his legend became the shield for all Western civilization. Xerxes had numbers. Leonidas had meaning, and meaning outlasts empires.